Welcome to AM Best Audio.
1 year after the devastating January 2025 wildfires in Los Angeles County, communities like Altadena and Pasadena mark the anniversary by moving from recovery to rebuilding. As insurers, policymakers, and homeowners reflect on the scale of the losses and lessons learned, the focus is increasingly on resilience, strengthening homes and businesses to better withstand future wildfire risks as climate-driven events grow more frequent and severe. I'm Lori Tortis for AM Best Audio, and joining us now to discuss that and the industry impact of these deadly and costly events is Sean Kevelighan. He's CEO of the Insurance Information Institute. Sean, welcome. So great to speak with you again. Thanks so much for joining us.
Well, thank you, Lori. I appreciate your time here today.
Sean, 1 year after the LA wildfires, what stands out most about their impact on insurers and policyholders, both in terms of operational challenges and financial losses and claims?
Well, one thing we said when these wildfires occurred is that the unfortunate truth of the matter is that this devastation was really in the waiting and almost inevitable. And I think for that reason, though, I think the insurance industry, as it always does in many very catastrophe-prone areas like we have in California with wildfires, that they have a plan. But I think what is different is, the magnitude of this catastrophe in terms of the hundreds of, the thousands of structures that came down, the displacing of tens of thousands of people. Here in the United States, that is not always the case with a catastrophe. So for the insurance industry, though, again, knowing that something like this could happen, the initial focus and the plan is always to make sure they're getting in touch with their customers as soon as possible, making sure that they're giving them any financial relief that they may need to get the claims paid out more immediately. And that is especially true for the likes of temporary housing, which we knew needed to happen, urgent repairs. So there was a big focus on speed and efficiency and processing the claims. And I think we've seen some very good results of that. We know more than $22 billion have been paid out by insurers so far. And I think from an operational standpoint, there is a lot of pressure because as much as you're planning for this and you understand that this could happen, the unpredictable part of it is when. And so that's where, the insurance industry did need to kick into gear and make sure that they were on top of it. And again, getting in touch with their customers, paying out the claims as fast as they could. This is where the insurance industry really kicks in as that financial first responder. But it's also a stark reminder that, people need in these times of devastation, clarity, compassion, and that is the role of the insurance companies right now, and they've been focused on that as well through this past year, and they will continue to be focused on that as this devastation will last for some time now.
What key lessons have insurers taken from the claims experience, coverage gaps, and recovery efforts following these fires?
Well, I think it goes back as well to what I mentioned early on about the inevitability of this. And as much as, we've talked about already that the role of the insurance company as the financial first responder, I think as we're seeing things settle and being shifting a focus into the rebuilding. There's an old saying about, those who don't learn from the past are doomed to repeat it. And, unfortunately, sometimes it takes a catastrophe of a large magnitude for people to begin to focus on how can we make this different? How can we not repeat this? And that's going to be really important as the rebuilding process begins. There needs to be really some conscious understanding and action by individuals and the communities more broadly on finding ways to make those communities more resilient. We are right now seeing what I would call a bit of an older version of insurance happening, where the insurance industry would detect when the catastrophe happened, and of course they'd repair. But what the future of insurance and risk management is more around how can we better predict and prevent. And I think when we're seeing communities like this, as dense as they are in these areas in Los Angeles, this is going to be very important. We need to remove that inevitability and figure out ways how we can, I think we had the predict part of it done, but the prevention wasn't there. And this isn't also the prevention element, the prediction and prevention. That's not just about insurance. That needs to be looked at, and there needs to be accountability by the community as a whole in understanding the role that everyone plays in this. And I think, for the III and along with the state and local officials that we've been working with, just continuing to make sure that as citizens and communities are rebuilding, that they're rebuilding smarter. Again, when you have large magnitude catastrophes, there is an opportunity. We saw this in Florida after Hurricane Andrew and their desire to really step up on building codes. And you are seeing the results of Florida's more resilient building codes and other things take place throughout hurricane seasons. We've got also other industry-driven initiatives. Certainly, one of our peer organizations, the Institute for Business and Home Safety, has their Wildfire Prepared Home, and helping people understand how their home can be more prepared for wildfires. But it's in a wildfire in particular, this needs to be a community effort. And so we are encouraging communities and individuals to understand what is it going to take so that we don't repeat this. We understand that these communities are vulnerable based on dry climates and being dense populations surrounded by other types of brush and such. And so we've got to really figure out how to make a change happen so that we don't go through this again.
Sean, how have the wildfires changed the way insurers assess, model, and price wildfire risk in California and also across the country?
Well, in particular with California, it was a bit of an anomaly of a state insofar as there were some regulatory challenges that did not allow insurers to use all the right tools they could possibly use to help the customer better understand the risk and how to underwrite it, in particular around modeling. Thankfully, and it kicked in this year, so arguably just a little late for what we're dealing with now and with these wildfires. But there have been some regulatory changes that are allowing innovations such as modeling come in and allowing those tools that are important for underwriting purposes. But the modeling and the tools can also be a very important information exchange with the customer and helping them understand what makes their house more insurable. In fact, we did some work just before these wildfires occurred with Guidewire, just illustrating how modeling can work, how you can look at individual homes and understand how one home, literally being a neighbor to another, can be much more wildfire prone than that other neighbor home, just by doing things in terms of the brush that surrounds their house, trees, those types of things. Having this information and then being able to communicate it to the customer, that's where we begin to, I think, have that information exchange and getting more and more towards a dual risk management exchange and information exchange. And so I think, though, that these wildfires are going to accelerate some of the changes. We're seeing insurers very quickly use more advanced property level data and modeling now to assess the risk and help them understand. Because we have to look at things like vegetation, the terrain, the building materials. And so now as homeowners have an opportunity to rebuild and ask those questions, we hope they'll be looking for the right answers to make them stronger for the future.
Customize your data experience. BestLink now offers an interactive company dashboard that provides company-level intelligence in a fast, user-friendly interface featuring interactive tables, charts, and Sparkline performance histories. Customize the dashboard tiles to prioritize the insurer ratings, data, and analytics that best support your workflow. AM Best. Our insight, your advantage.
Well, speaking of rebuilding, if we can focus a little bit more about those efforts, what steps has the industry taken over the past year to improve wildfire resilience? And how are insurers encouraging homeowners to rebuild smarter rather than simply replace what was lost?
Well, I do think, insurance as it evolves has become more of a ongoing relationship with the customer and help in exchanging information and understanding of ways that the customer can make themselves more resilient. The costs of insurance in states like California uh, have been going up because the risk levels are going up. So the customer more and more wants to understand how they can reduce their risk. And we're seeing that exchange between the customer as well as the insurer, figuring out ways and things that they can do to make their homes much more resilient. And I think that's going to be very important in this case, finding ways to rebuild smarter, protect their homes. Nobody will want to go through this again. We do hope that everybody learns from this and we have these communities in a better place.
Earlier, you mentioned the Insurance Institute for Business and Home Safety's Wildfire Prepared Home program. Can you just tell us a little bit more about that program?
Well, it's great. IBHS is such a great organization insofar as they take their research and they truly get that research out to help communities better understand how to make themselves more resilient. And I think the Wildfire Prepared Home program is one that they really, based on science, gives them a roadmap for how they can reduce their risks. Covering up different things like the non-combustible zones, the fire-rated roofs, ember-resistant vents, fire-resistant windows. These are all things that, unfortunately, people don't necessarily think are options for them. And so now that they have an option in these areas to rebuild, things like these standards that IBHS is putting out, and IBHS has other great standards around wind-resistant roofs and hail-resistant roofs and things like that. These are all ways that are helping the customer understand how to be resilient. But what we're also finding too is they're improving the home value. And as every homeowner wants the value of their home to increase. Arguably, that's more important than even the cost of insurance. So finding ways that they can better understand how to make their home better protected, more resilient, and as well increasing their value. And I think that's a question more and more people are beginning to ask. And thankfully, IBHS and III as well are trying to provide those answers as much as possible.
And are there any other upcoming initiatives or programs that III is working on in this area that you're able to share?
Well, absolutely. We've actually just formalized a project in Dallas. We're really trying to look at resilience as not just an insurance issue. We're trying to look at it as the roles that people play and organizations play throughout the entire economic ecosystem. And so for the last couple of years, we've been gathering all those various organizations and individuals that are part of that ecosystem, whether it's the developing and contracting community, the realty community, the financing community, utilities. All of these have an important role to play in resilience. And if they work together, government as well, if we work together to figure out programs and plans that can help communities become more resilient, that's going to make a difference. And so in Dallas, what we're looking at in particular is in and around severe convective storms and hail that impacts those areas. And again, much like California, the state of Texas has increases in population. In fact, the state of Texas has the most growing population in the United States right now. So again, more density in some of these catastrophe-prone areas. And Texas is a state that's prone to every catastrophe other than volcanoes. But in Dallas in particular, they have a very big hail problem in the roofs. And through the IBHS, who's one of our partners in this initiative, we are finding ways to ensure that communities and consumers can figure out how to get a fortified roof on their homes that can make them more resilient to the likes of hail. The program will involve having grants and loans to allow consumers to pay for this. We're working in conjunction with existing government programs. We're developing a resilience score on properties so that this score can be an educational tool for the consumer that can help the consumer better understand how they can incrementally improve their resilient level based on the score that they have. But then that can have, and we hope will have, impacts on financing, impacts on insurance. But again, in going back to the home value part of it, these fortified roof programs in some other states like Alabama, we've seen very clear examples of how having a fortified roof has increased the value of a home. And when the neighbors begin to see that home values are going up with homes for these roofs, it begins to spur that incentivization that I mentioned in the ecosystem, where others want to. The realtors want to sell the homes, the contractors want to get certified to put the roofs on. Those in the financing community wants to make sure that these homes are there so that their loans are better protected. So stay tuned. We have gotten all of the right players in place to at least get us started, and we're hoping by the end of the first quarter here, we will have a more formal launch of that program. And that program is very much fostering action. We talk a lot about resilience and have for a long time, but with III and IBHS and our partners, we're trying to get on the ground and take action before catastrophes like we're seeing in Los Angeles with these wildfires happen, so that we can, again, predict and prevent.
And Sean, looking ahead, how will insurers be working with policymakers, communities, and others in the coming years to support rebuilding while managing growing climate risk? And what lessons from the LA wildfires should help guide future insurance and resilience strategies?
Yeah, I think, as I mentioned earlier about this not just being about insurance, I think this is a community, and we need to help people be aware of our individual roles that we can play to create and foster a larger, more holistic resilience in our communities. And so the point of our Dallas pilot program is, we say a lot that we want to scale it and we want to repeat it. And we're already in discussions with other states and governments in the United States, state governments, to foster these programs. We're trying to build our roadmap in Dallas so that we can repeat and scale in other areas. And we're beginning to sense that these communities are very open to this. They just need to know what the tools are to make it happen. And we're very positive on having these tools. Our partner in this throughout the last couple of years has been PwC, who has helped us really build this out. And we do hope, and really anytime we've presented this, whether it's an insurance regulator or a city emergency manager, they've been very positive because they understand we've just got to do this together.
I wish you all the best with that wonderful initiative. Sean, this has been so fascinating, so insightful. It's always such a pleasure to speak with you. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today. Greatly appreciate it.
Anytime, Lori. Always a pleasure. Thank you.
That was Sean Kevelighan, CEO of the Insurance Information Institute. For AM Best Audio, I'm Lori Chortis.
Looking to get the full attention of the insurance industry? We have the platforms that will do just that. Whether it be AM Best TV, AM Best Audio, Best Review Magazine, or Best Day. Find out more by calling AM Best Advertising Sales at 908-439-2200, extension 5399, and have a great day.